Okay, so in the last video, we had a look at factoring x squared plus bx plus c, and we used an exhaustive method where we went through all the different possibilities of pairs of numbers that could multiply to c and looked to see which ones worked out and multiplied to c and added to b. And we just went from the top of the list down to the bottom until we hit gold. So what I'm going to do this time is same method, but I want to give some tips as to where we should go first to make things faster. And you might recall on the side here, we had the first one was c is negative and b is negative. It was this example here, x squared minus 1x minus 30, and that's what we'll do first again. And in that case, because c is negative, one number will be negative, one will be positive, and because b is negative, out of those two, it's the bigger one that has to be negative. So we went and we said, okay, we need two numbers that multiply to negative 30 and add to negative 1, and we listed out all the pairs of numbers that could possibly multiply to 30, 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and 5 times 6, okay? And we said, okay, well, because they're going to multiply to a negative and add to a negative, it's the larger of the two numbers that need to be negative. So we had this situation here. Now, I am adding and hoping to get a negative 1. That's a fairly small number, okay? And I know from experience that when I'm doing this, if I have a small number, it's very likely to come at the bottom of the list. And I'll show you why in a second. So if I was doing this, I would jump straight to the last line. I would say, okay, what's 5 times negative 6? Well, that is negative 30. Good, that's what I was expecting. What is 5 plus negative 6? That is negative 1. That's exactly what I wanted. Done. Okay, let me quickly go through and add them for all of them and show you what's happening. We have 1 plus negative 30, that's negative 29. We have 2 plus negative 15, that's negative 13. And we have 3 plus negative 10, that is negative 7. Because I listed out all the possibilities in order, what happens is, in fact, the sums go from the biggest in absolute value down to the smallest. Okay, negative 29 is pretty big. Negative 13, a little smaller. Negative 7, smaller yet. Negative 1, smallest of all. So, if I have c is negative, b is negative, and I have a small b, I'm immediately keying in on the last row. If I had a big B, if I had an example like x squared minus 29x minus 30, now B's big, I'm immediately keying in on the first row. And if I had a B that's sort of a middle number, like maybe the question was x squared minus 7x minus 30, I would start with one of these two, okay? And then work my way out from there. If it wasn't the first of these two I picked, I'd probably take a look at the next one. So we have bigger sums at the top in absolute value, not just ignoring the negative signs, 29, and smaller sums at the bottom. Okay, let's do another example and see how we can use this to quickly key in on the answer instead of going through exhaustively and having to do every single combination. This time, let's get one from type 2 here, a negative c again, and this time a positive b, okay? So we had before in the last video x squared plus 7x minus 30. That means that if we're going to solve this, we're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 30 and add to positive 7. And we went and we said, well, it could be 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. We're multiplying to a negative, so that means one number has to be negative, one has to be positive, and we're adding to a positive, which means that the bigger number has to be the positive. So we'll make all of the smaller numbers negative. that was summarized here on the right-hand side with a -1 and a 30. But we can do better in terms of narrowing in on what we want. Here, b is kind of a medium-sized number. It's not enormous. It's not tiny, okay? So it's going to be one of the middle ones. I'll pick here. -3 plus 10. Yeah, that's 7. I got it right off the bat. Okay, -3 times 10 is -30. That's the C. And -3 plus 10 is +7. So I immediately know, without going through all of them, that I'm going to factor it like this. X minus 3 because of the -3, x plus 10 because of the +10. Okay, now maybe I would have picked this one first, and that's fine. -2 plus 15, I'd get 13. That's not 7. So then I'd pick the other middle one. Okay, because once again, we're going to have big values of b at the top, small values of b at the bottom. So this is how I'm choosing where to do the calculations first. Okay, let's do another example here. The third one was x squared minus 17x. Let's get that in here. Plus 30. Okay, x squared minus 17x plus 30 was the question. So I wanted to find two numbers that multiply to +30 and add to -17. Once again, I go, okay, 1 and 30 are the numbers, two numbers that multiply to 30. 2 and 15 are two other numbers that multiply to 30. 3 and 10, and 5 and 6 to round off the list. This time they're multiplying to a positive, so they're both the same sign. They're adding to a negative, so in fact every single one is going to be negative. Okay, this is this third case here. And now, once again, the biggest ones in absolute value will be at the top. The relatively smaller ones will be at the bottom. 17, well, that's a moderate number. I'm going to pick somewhere in the middle. Maybe I'll try here. What's -3 plus -10? -13. Close. -13 is close to -17, but I didn't quite get it. I'll pick another middle one. Let's try this one here. -2 plus -15. Bingo. That's -17. So my answer is x minus 2 times x minus 15. -2 because of the -2, minus 15 because of the -15. Done. I didn't have to do the first one or the last one. Okay, let's do our last example here. The last one that I gave was x squared plus 31x plus 30. Okay, let me just clear this up here. Get rid of that over there. The question was x squared plus 31x plus 30. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to +30 and add to +31. That's really big. 31 is really big compared to 30. Okay, so I'm thinking first line all the way. 1 and 30. And as you get really good at it, you might not even list the rest of them. You just do the 1 and 30, but I'll list them out. 2 and 15. 3 and 10, 5 and 6. They're going to multiply to a positive, so they have to be the same sign. B is positive, so in fact they're all positive. There's no negatives. This is the fourth case. And so B is really big. Big is at the top. Small is at the bottom. So I'm going to go right here. What's 1 plus 30? It is 31. It's the B I'm looking for. So in fact, this is it. 1 times 30 is 30. That's C. 1 plus 30 is 31. That's B. So this one is x plus 1, x plus 30. Okay, so once you've got the exhaustive method down, you can start making things faster by taking the row that corresponds to how big B is. If it's pretty small, it's going to be near the bottom or at the bottom. If it's pretty big, it's going to be near or at the top. If it's a medium number, it might be one of the middle ones. Okay, And this will work even if you're not working with 30, of course. You might have 5 or 6 rows of pairs of numbers. It's still the same principle. The smaller ones are going to be at the bottom, the bigger ones will be at the top. Okay, so hopefully that helps you get your answers without going through every single possibility.